Hey crew, before we dive into today's chilling scenario, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. We're about to explore a world where the Cold War never ended and a new superpower rises from the ashes. Buckle up, because this one's going to be wild. The world watched in astonishment, glued to their screens and newspapers. As the Berlin Wall crumbled in 1989, a symbol of division and oppression falling to the ground, the seemingly invincible Soviet Union, a superpower that had held the world in a tense grip for decades, began to fracture, its iron curtain lifting. Its vast empire, stretching from the heart of Europe to the Far East, dissolved into independent nations, each seeking its own path. The Cold War, a period marked by ideological conflict, proxy wars, and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation, seemed to be over. The West had triumphed, and the specter of global conflict appeared to recede. Democracy, it seemed, was the future. Nations embraced the promise of freedom and self-determination. But history, like a river, has a way of changing its course, often in unexpected ways. Old currents can resurface, carrying with them the echoes of the past, reminding us that history is never truly behind us. The world had grown accustomed to a unipolar system, with the United States as the sole superpower, shaping global policies and maintaining order. Yet the seeds of a new global order were being sown, one with the potential to revive the specter of Cold War tensions, as new powers emerged and old rivalries reignited. The collapse of the Soviet Union, while a moment of great hope, also created a void, a power vacuum that would not remain empty for long. Into this void stepped a new generation of Russian leaders, determined to reclaim their nation's lost glory and restore it to its former position of global dominance, driven by a sense of historical destiny. The West, lulled into a false sense of security, failed to grasp the full implications of this shift in power, underestimating the resurgence of Russian ambition. The lessons of the Cold War, once etched in the minds of world leaders, began to fade, as new generations took the stage, often unaware of the past's intricate dynamics. The world stood at a crossroads, facing an uncertain future, with multiple paths diverging, each fraught with its own challenges and opportunities. The question was no longer whether the Cold War could return, but rather, what form it would take in the 21st century. Would it be a Cold War of cyber conflicts, economic battles, or a new kind of ideological struggle? As the world navigates these turbulent waters, the enduring legacy of the Cold War continues to shape our present and future, reminding us that the past is never truly gone. Imagine a world where the red banner of the Soviet Union once again flies over vast swathes of Eurasia. The iconic hammer and sickle, symbols of a bygone era, now represent a new dawn, a resurgence that many thought impossible. This is not a scenario confined to the pages of alternate history books. It is a vision that some believe could become a reality, a chilling possibility that looms on the horizon. The possibility of a resurgent Russia, a nation fueled by a potent mix of historical grievance and modern ambition, is a chilling reality that demands our attention. This is a Russia that remembers its past glories and is determined to reclaim them, no matter the cost. This is not the Soviet Union of old, shackled by a rigid communist ideology and a stagnant economy. The new vision is one of adaptability and strategic evolution. This is USSR 2.0, a technologically advanced, economically powerful entity, capable of projecting its influence far beyond its borders. It is a nation that has harnessed the power of modern technology and innovation to build a formidable presence on the global stage. This new Soviet Union has learned from the mistakes of its predecessor. It has studied the failures of the past and has vowed not to repeat them, crafting a new path forward that blends the old with the new. It has embraced the principles of capitalism, but only to a point, using its newfound wealth to strengthen its military and expand its global reach. The economy is a tool, a means to an end, rather than an end in itself. This new iteration of the Soviet Union is not driven by a desire to spread communist ideology. Instead, it is driven by a pragmatic approach to power and influence, using whatever means necessary to achieve its goals. Instead, it seeks to reassert its dominance on the world stage, to reclaim what it believes is its rightful place as a global superpower. The leaders of this new Soviet Union are determined, charismatic, and unyielding in their vision. It is a nation driven by a potent mix of nationalism, historical revisionism, and a thirst for power. The echoes of the past are ever present, fueling a fervent desire to rewrite history in its favor. The rise of USSR 2.0 is not a sudden event, but rather a slow and insidious process. It is a calculated and deliberate effort, a series of strategic moves designed to gradually shift the balance of power. It is a creeping expansion, a gradual erosion of the international order that has held sway since the end of the Cold War. Each step is carefully planned, each move meticulously executed to avoid immediate detection and resistance. The West, distracted by internal divisions and preoccupied with other global challenges, has been slow to recognize the danger. The signs are there, but they are often overlooked or dismissed as inconsequential. As the West grapples with its own issues, from economic crises to political turmoil, the new Soviet Union quietly advances its agenda. The world watches, often unaware of the subtle shifts taking place, until it may be too late to respond effectively. The international community must remain vigilant, recognizing the signs of this resurgence and responding with unity and resolve. The future of global stability may very well depend on our ability to understand and address the ambitions of USSR 2.0. The ambitions of USSR 2.0 extend far beyond its own borders, echoing the grandiose visions of its predecessor. Like its predecessor, this new Soviet Union views itself as the center of a Eurasian empire, destined to dominate its neighbors and reshape the geopolitical landscape. The former Soviet republics, once bastions of independence and freedom, are once again drawn into Moscow's orbit. Their sovereignty is eroded by economic pressure, political manipulation, and the ever-present threat of military force, creating a climate of fear and uncertainty. The Baltic states, once symbols of successful resistance to Soviet rule, watch nervously as Russian troops mass on their borders. The specter of invasion looms large, and their leaders scramble to fortify defenses and seek assurances from Western allies. Ukraine, a nation torn between its European aspirations and its historical ties to Russia, becomes a battleground once more. Its people are caught in the crossfire of a new Cold War, facing daily struggles and the harsh realities of conflict. But the expansionist ambitions of USSR 2.0 are not confined to the former Soviet space. The Kremlin's reach extends far beyond its immediate neighbors. Russia, under its new leadership, seeks to reassert its influence across the globe, challenging the West in every corner of the world. From diplomatic maneuvers to military interventions, the Kremlin's strategy is multifaceted and relentless. From the Middle East to Africa, Russia's presence is felt. Its military bases and advisors support regimes and factions that align with its interests. From Latin America to the Arctic, Russia inserts itself into regional conflicts, propping up dictators, undermining democratic movements, and sowing discord wherever it can. The Arctic, with its untapped resources, becomes a new frontier for Russian ambitions. Russia's involvement in regional conflicts is strategic, aimed at expanding its sphere of influence. By supporting pro-Russian leaders and destabilizing regions, it seeks to create a world more favorable to its interests. This new Cold War is not just about territory, it is about influence. It is a battle for hearts and minds, for control over the global narrative. It is about control over resources, over trade routes, over information. Energy pipelines become tools of leverage, and trade routes are contested battlegrounds. It is about shaping the global narrative, about rewriting history to fit the Kremlin's agenda. Through media, education, and propaganda, Russia seeks to influence how the world perceives its actions and ambitions. The West awakens, NATO and the US confront a familiar threat. The resurgence of an aggressive and expansionist Russia sends shockwaves through the West. After years of complacency, NATO, the military alliance formed to counter the Soviet threat, is jolted back into action. The United States, once the guarantor of global security, finds itself facing a challenge that seems all too familiar. The initial response is hesitant, almost disbelieving. Could the Cold War really be back? Many in the West refused to believe that Russia, a nation they had dismissed as a declining power, could pose such a serious threat. But as the evidence mounts, as Russian tanks roll across borders and cyber attacks cripple Western infrastructure, the West is forced to confront the reality of the situation. NATO, once seen as a relic of a bygone era, undergoes a rapid modernization program. Military spending increases, troops are deployed to Eastern Europe, and new technologies are developed, to counter the growing Russian threat. The United States, its global dominance challenged, reaffirms its commitment to its allies and vows to contain Russian aggression. The world holds its breath, bracing for a confrontation that could have catastrophic consequences. Lines in the sand, new battlegrounds in a bipolar world. The resurgence of a powerful and ambitious Russia redraws the geopolitical map of the world. Old alliances are tested, new partnerships are forged, and the globe is once again divided into two opposing camps. The lines in the sand are drawn, not just in Europe, but in every corner of the world. The Arctic, once a frozen wasteland, becomes a strategic prize as melting ice caps open up new shipping routes and access to vast reserves of natural resources. Russia, with its long Arctic coastline and growing military presence in the region, stakes its claim, while NATO countries scramble to protect their interests. The Middle East, already a cauldron of instability, becomes even more volatile as Russia and the West back opposing sides in regional conflicts. Syria, Libya, Yemen, these become the new battlegrounds of a 21st century Cold War, where proxy wars are fought and the blood of innocents is spilled. Africa, a continent rich in resources and potential, becomes another arena for competition between Russia and the West. From the Sahel to the Horn of Africa, Russia seeks to expand its influence, offering military aid, security guarantees, and economic investment in exchange for access to strategic resources and political loyalty. The rise of USSR 2.0 is a chilling scenario, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the high cost of conflict. But it's also a call to action. We must learn from history, prioritize diplomacy, and invest in understanding to prevent such a catastrophe. The fate of our world hangs in the balance. Share this video to spark a conversation about the importance of peace and diplomacy. Let's ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated.